To consolidate Russian society and the world public's efforts aimed at strengthening peace and friendship among peoples, in June 2014, the International Advisory Committee of Organizations of Reserve Officers and the National Association of Unions of the Armed Forces Reserve Officers, MEGAPIR, the public chamber of the Russian Federation, jointly with the Public Council at the Ministry of Defense of Russia, held the All-Russian Meeting of Reserve Officers. The forum was titled "The International Cooperation of Reserve Officers as a Crucial Preventive Factor Against Wars, Armed Conflicts and Terrorism." Today, there are representatives from various social and public organizations of reserve officers from Kamchatka to Kaliningrad, including interregional and international public organizations. In total, there are more than 40 of them. There are about 20 representatives from 20 diplomatic military corps and our foreign guests. Namely, I'm referring to the Vice President of the International Advisory Committee from Jordan and guests from Azerbaijan, Serbia and Slovakia. Forms of interaction with representatives from various countries allow us to exchange views and work experience and inform you about the main events that took place during the previous year. Jointly with the International Advisory Committee and the Organization of Reserve Officers, presided over by Alexander Kanchin, we backed the conduct of the event to once again raise questions related to Officers' Association to address those challenges facing humanity. The meeting was attended by representatives from regional officer associations from Kaliningrad to Kamchatka, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Emergency Situations, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Federal Security Service of Russia, the Tax Service, the Drug Control Federal Service, the Presidential Administration of the Russian Federation, the State Duma and the Federation Council, the Chamber of Accounts, the General Prosecutor's Office, the Investigation Committee, international and Russian veteran public organizations, the Russian Public Chamber, public councils under the Ministry of Defense and other law enforcement agencies, the Secretariat of the Council of the Defense Ministers of the CIS member states, and media.
Simply, I think it's very important that you find ways and mechanisms for officers and veterans to discuss the lessons learned of the past.
Former Soviet Union's officers maintained relations to address relevant issues that will be discussed today, including consolidation of all forces to counter threats for peace. Such kind of activities should be carried out more often. Public opinion should be shaped, and to do so, we need to know it. And if we want to know it, there is a need to bring people together. The Officers' Assembly Public Association of Reserve Officers has been operating within the MEGAPIR National Associations of the Armed Forces Reserve Officers since 2003. It is headed by Soviet Union Marshal Dmitry Yazov. Its main task is to promote and affirm traditions of the Russian Army, render assistance to reserve officers and their families, as well as to consolidate efforts for solving urgent problems. In October 2003, within the framework of the MEGAPIR Association, Officers' Assembly was set up. It operates in 67 constituent entities of the Russian Federation and brings together 42,000 people. The Russian Federation Public Chamber backed the idea to conduct officers' meetings and more recently began using it for international cooperation. Earlier, such meetings were held in 2009 and 2011. Today's third All-Russian Officers meeting was held jointly with the International Advisory Committee of Organizations of Reserve Officers. Opening the meeting, the President of the International Advisory Committee of Organizations of Reserve Officers, Alexander Kanchin, noted that both civil society and politicians from different countries should actively use reserve officers' experience, knowledge, skills, and willingness to cooperate in the name of peace, including international cooperation. There are no indifferent people in this room. Among those present are people who have proven that serving the country is the highest priority of Russia's officer corps, which is equally true for many countries in the world. Reserve officers have the right and are obliged to openly address the state and society on issues of national security, force development, social protection of servicemen and those who have retired from the military, and patriotic work with the youth. The meeting organizers are confident that, given the difficult international situation, including the latest developments in Ukraine, the method of people's diplomacy and revitalization of veterans organizations' activities in terms of development of international cooperation, on the one hand, enhances Russia's prestige and, on the other hand, can solve challenges and threats posed to the world civilization. Our cooperation should be based on awareness that we need to pass our experience to generations to come, rather than on our personal ambitions. I think all those present here are fathers, grandfathers, and some of you are maybe already great-grandfathers. And you see, none of us wants our children and grandchildren to fight against each other in the distant future. The very idea must lay a foundation for our cooperation. Speakers unanimously confirmed that reserve officers have the authority and obligation to openly address the state and society on national security, military development, and bear responsibility for the fate of their countries and the world. Veterans of war and military conflicts from different countries need to unite, in the name of peace and for the sake of life. The First World War killed 5 million people in Russia alone, and the Second World War took about 25–27 million lives. And if we do not prevent the unleashing of the Third World War, it is most likely to cost us over 30 million lives. Veteran organizations actively participate in international events in order to consolidate Russia's and global community's efforts aimed at strengthening peace and friendship among peoples. We know that in many less economically developed countries, issues of social support rendered to military observers have been resolved. I believe that the solution of the problems at the national level will allow our Russian officers being far from home to feel more socially secure. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the officers' meeting, which is a fine example for all public organizations, including veterans' Komsomol organizations, of how activities should be organized and how efforts must be pulled together to achieve goals. Foreign guests of the meeting delivered speeches and shared with the audience experience of their veterans organizations and emphasized the expanding authority and role of the International Advisory Committee of Organizations of Reserve Officers in establishing friendly contacts among reserve officers from different countries.
Their invitation to such an important meeting on international cooperation of reserve and retired servicemen to discuss, in addition to that, which is very important again for our meeting, is the discussion of ways and means to fight the newly and old spread phenomenon called terrorism.
During the meeting, a documentary on the International Scientific Practical Conference held in Belgrade and dedicated to the centenary of the First World War was shown to participants of the meeting. After the film demonstration, the International Advisory Committee's initiative to hold the annual International Festival of TV programs and films was backed by all those present in a friendly and emotional atmosphere. Megapeer goes international, and we can state that it has already done it with flying colors. Today's International Officers Meeting is very important. This is a foundation for communication, exchange of experiences, and establishing business contacts. Besides, it is seen as one of our working instruments. According to participants of the meeting, The international cooperation of veterans organizations, including such forms of cooperation, above all, should positively affect the education of young people, shape their principles of fairness, mutual respect and friendship, put the youth in touch with the experience and tradition of military honor and dignity in the interests of spiritual and moral education and promotion of human values. Since 2010, the Council of Representatives of the Megapeer Association held 2 officers' meetings in the Kamchatka region. The meetings' resolutions were sent not only to the Megapeer Association leadership, but to the governor, the Legislative Assembly and the Chief Federal Inspector of the Kamchatka region. Nowadays, we do a lot of work on the scale of the International Club of the Council of Defense Ministers of the CIS countries. Pavel Grachov presided over our club, and after he passed away, some reorganizations are taking place these days. Here, I would like to take note that he did a good deal to strengthen relations among the CIS countries and to jointly solve all topical issues. The forum also summed up the work of the public chamber on issues of national security and socio-economic conditions of military personnel, their families and veterans. For 2.5 years, the Commission has consistently touched upon issues on the country's security, army development, social protection of servicemen and reserve officers, as well as questions related to patriotic work with the youth. A lot of proposals were reflected in legislative acts, federal and other documents of states and agencies. I would like to thank Alexander Nikolaevich and all his Commission colleagues for discussing the issues of accommodation for servicemen, armed conflicts participants and families of the deceased. The field of activities allows us to address with documents to the State Duma, the Defense Ministry and other bodies of our country. I would like to thank the participants of the All-Russian Officers Meeting for our fruitful work, the development of cooperation among veteran organizations around the world in the name of peace. It is the first time for me to take part in such a meeting, and despite nowadays problems, I am sincerely delighted with the work of the team and its leadership. Summarizing results of the meeting, there was made an address to the country's political leadership, Russia's federal agencies, the international community, as well as to all Russian and foreign reserve officers to unite their efforts for countering modern threats, strengthening friendship and cooperation between peoples, and deepening humanitarian cooperation among armies of different countries. During a friendly informal communication at a ceremonial reception, participants and guests of the meeting shared their impressions on the results of the event and unanimously concluded that officers' meetings were an important means to unite veterans and an effective form of international people's diplomacy. Conferences are very important not only for my organization, but for all organizations of the International Advisory Committee. We meet with new people here, new countries, and agree upon joint work and actions against war. People who have passed through horrors of wars and hardships of military service do have first-hand experience, and they know about blood and death, and know how to fight, carry out public and state activities aimed at establishing peace in the entire world. International cooperation is a very topical issue in the light of today's global world changes, and through using means of people's diplomacy, veterans organizations can reach a lot.